and her name is Minerva. Ouch. She's the flower of the flower. Ouch.
And here I am, just like that. I don't know why I love that Daffy Duck, Porky Pig little intro thing so much, but I do. So I play it over and over again. I also, if you notice, worked in the Wraith of God trailer, which I haven't played in a long time. So anyway, here we are. It's a live stream. It's a last second live stream. I'm notorious for these. I just like to, sit down and start drawing and, hey, turn the camera on. Why not? It's Friday. It's the 24th. I got a lot of stuff going on today. So I'm trying to squeeze this in between things. I've got a new freezer for the garage is being delivered today. But between 1:30 and 4:30, which means when I want it to come early, it'll show up at 4:30. When I'm streaming and I don't want it to come till later, it'll show up at 1:30. So we'll see how it goes. So we're going to be on at least for an hour and maybe a little bit longer and see what's shaking. As you can see back behind me, there's a couple of banners, but if you look over to the my right, you'll see a double page wraparound cover of Wraith of God Blood Hunters, which I was working on the last live stream, but I put that aside for a moment because the Diaz brothers have a book called CG Vacation, which is basically like a kind of a tribute to the old Marvel swimsuit books or magazines of the 90s. And so I've got a piece for that I have to get done. So I'm going to do that. We're working on that today. So buckle up. Hey, Leg Kick's here because Leg Kick is almost always here, and he's claiming first and second in the house. So that's pretty impressive. You get, you get nothing for that, but thank you for joining us. Aaron Louviere is here. Stephen Rockwood drawing. Hey, Aaron, inking more of the cover. No, I just explained that. I'm going to ink something else, but the cover's not far behind, but not today. Maybe later today. But for right now, we're going to be inking a gal getting ready to take a bath. Christopher Majorana. Majorana? Close, right? I'd be a terrible school teacher, like reading the names of the kids for the first day. Opinionated person is there. We're all opinionated, aren't we? Pathmaster Dan, ahoy chat. Hello, Mr. Lopresti. Thank you for the respect. Appreciate that. Looks like there's a puppet back there too. Yeah, he's he's asleep. It may stay that way for quite some time. Look at that. Ghostly says, hi, everyone. Finally, a Euro-friendly stream. I'm all about being friendly to Europeans. CG Vacay, sexy time. Lol. Yeah. Quoth the Raven, Lewis Brighton says, hiding. I'm assuming he's referring to the puppet back there in the chair. Postmaster, 2 times as much nothing. Well, I mean, I suppose you could say that, but I would say this. Here, catch. There you go. AJ's here. Jaws teachers and a scally cap. Style doesn't get better than that. I was amazed at how many great opening guitar riffs that AC/DC songs have. There's it's like practically every one of their songs is like this great memorable opening guitar riff. And the lead singer that replaced Bon Scott after he died wears one of these all the time. So I don't know if that's cool or not, but there you go. He set the precedent, and I'm just kind of following the lead there. I would love to have a Peppy, the prawn puppet. I would love that. I love Peppy. He's one of my favorite Muppets. Okay, Christopher says it's pronounced Majorana. Marana, right? Or is it, why do you capitalize the R-A? Just for emphasis? Majorana or Majorana. I'm going to say Majorana. It's, he's Sicilian. So am I. How about that? Lopresti's easier, though, I think, to pronounce. because it sounds exactly as it's spelled, Majorana. I guess that does too, though, right? Majorana. Yeah, okay. Ghosty's like, marijuana? What? Yeah, see, there we go. Now look what happened. Oh, I see. For emphasis. Majorana. Huh? Majorana. Huh? Yeah. Okay, I still have that Italian blood coursing through me. Okay. Let's get rolling since I really don't have that. Oh, I see. Lewis said, no, I meant I'm here, but hiding. I see. I just watched your shirt 10 minutes ago to first timer. He is 10 years old. All right, let me try that again. I just watched your shirt 10 minutes ago to a first timer. He is 10 years old. Oh, in other words, you just showed a 10-year-old Jaws for the first time. I get it. You don't have to explain it to me twice or 10 times. Look at that. Squeaky's here. Hey, Squeaky. I met Squeaky in person just this past weekend. What a nice lady she is. And there, see? Bongo. That's kind of like bingo. Bingo, bango, bongo. I got it right. Okay. Okay, let's move right along and do this. All right, so what am I doing? I'm going to ink this young lady who's getting ready to take a bath, it appears, but it looks like the Wraith's coming in just in time to save the day because he's telling her, no, there's not enough soap in that water. Don't get in there yet. All right, as you can see, I've already kind of inked the wood back there. Now, this whole background, all this wood back here is all going to be almost black. There'll be some white lines of texture, wood texture in there, but it's going to be pretty much black. But that would be like incredibly boring to watch me ink that. So we're going to ink her. I'm going to start off with a Micron 8.0. To give me the maximum boldness for the outline of her figure. Probably would be okay to do this with a brush, since I tend to be a little bit more smoother and delicate when inking the female form. However, I do not want to clean a brush out today, so I'm not going to. So I'll just be a little bit more careful with my pen line. Oh, look at this. L.E. Munoz is listening while he's delivering mail. I love that. Thank you. Paul Blair wants to know, why is there no rubber ducky in there? I don't even think, did they like have rubber and plastic back in 1883? I don't think they did yet. I think that was like part of the Industrial Revolution, wasn't it? Oh, Squeaky's working at home today. Look at that. Old man says, hi, Aaron. I have to work, but I wanted to say hi before I left. Thank you for dropping in, even though it's just momentarily. All right, let's get back to work here. This beautiful ruffle on her, what do I call this? Corset, her undergarment? I don't know. I'd like to remind everyone that there is a episode of Comic Art Convo coming up tomorrow at 4 o'clock that I will be doing with Sequential Treasures, where we talk about comic stuff and art-related comic stuff and Comic Con stories and experiences and all that kind of stuff. So it's actually a pretty fun show. So That's 4 p.m. Pacific time tomorrow, if you're around. And I got to tell you, it's a little bit tougher now because we're getting some sunny weather here, which we have not had in months. It has been like raining nonstop. And they tell us we're going to have a drought this summer. And I'm like, okay, we're halfway through the summer and it just now stopped raining. But you guys will be proud of me. I got up this morning. I went out and mowed the front and the back and pulled weeds all before 10 a.m. And then I was like, after that, I was too tired to draw. Well, there we go. Stephen Rockwood Drawing says natural rubber has always existed. Well, yes, of course. Synthetic rubber became a thing in the early 1900s. Okay, so it would have been right around the Industrial Revolution. So there you go. Leg kick. They're proud of me for actually getting out of bed. Thank you so much. Me too. My dog insists on being fed breakfast at like anywhere between 6:30 and 8. And it really depends on the day. So he usually gets me up early. Then I go back and lay down for a while. But once you're awake, it's kind of hard to sort of go back to sleep. So I just kind of lay there until I actually wake up. And then begin my busy day of drawing pictures and eating food. And then occasionally doing yard work. Once I get this figure outlined, I will then we'll go in a little bit closer when I work on her face. I've kind of been thinking about doing some videos that aren't live streams. They're actually like, what would you call them? Edited videos, and posting those on my channel. I understand from everybody who does this pretty regularly that if you want to grow your channel, that's the way to do it, is to post short, pre-prepared videos. And so I was thinking, well, I could do a lot of people are always asking me for like, can you give me any good books, for anatomy or just drawing comics in general, or the type of stuff I might have to draw in a comic. And so I'm going to do a short video just showing some of my favorite books. Because I think those are the kind of videos I think that interest people. They're short, they give you some information, and you can move on. And so I'm going to do one of those. Although those of you that don't know, I do have quite a few videos posted on my channel that aren't live streams. They're just prepared videos with that type of information. Some about comic collecting too. Because when you're a comic collector, like I am, I like to talk about comics, at least old comics. And I see guys that they do, they post videos on, they'll send books to CGC and then they'll post a video of them like opening the box. And they get thousands of views. And I'm like, well, geez, maybe I should do that. Except I don't really send books to CG very often because they always come back, or CGC, they always come back graded worse than I thought they were, and then I get all mad. So I buy CGC graded books, but I'm not really going to be sending in any more of my books that I bought years ago. Because I don't want to be ticked off with a getting a grade that I don't agree with. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to go as well. I don't normally throw down a lot of line work when I'm doing female figures and pinup type stuff. I just kind of don't clutter it up with that stuff. But I'm not going to be coloring this, and I'm not sure exactly who is. So hopefully they will do a good job, and then I won't be ticked off. But the problem is I'm such a slow colorist that it's not economically sound or deadline friendly for me to be coloring a bunch of artwork. Because to color this would probably take me several days. And even if you're getting a Marvel or DC rate for coloring, that is not the way to make a living. But I will be coloring my Wraith of God covers and pinups and things like that that are for my campaign. I will admit, though, if I actually hired someone to flat the colors for me, instead of doing it myself, it would save me an incredible amount of time, because that's where I spend most of my time, is flatting. And if you don't know what flatting is, that's just basically you scan the black and white artwork in to Photoshop or whatever program you happen to use for coloring, and you lay in all these flat colors. So everything's colored and looks like an old comic would, you know, that didn't have any modeling or anything, just flat color. And you copy each one of those, you know, like if I made her dress purple, for example, then I would copy it and make it into its own separate channel or layer, depending on if you color in channel or layers. And then if I wanted to change the color, I could just, you know, use the magic wand, hit it, activate that area, and then I could just change colors whenever I wanted to. So it makes it real easy to do the finished work on the coloring. It's just a real tedious process of laying in all those colors. So I will be hiring my daughter, actually, to, now that she's home from college for the summer, I will be hiring her to flat some of this Wraith of God stuff I got coming up, so I don't have to. Mighty Geek Studio says if you're doing all the work yourself, then black and white would be the best. Stephen Rockwood says, I kind of like flat color. Actually, so do I. I don't do, anybody that looks at my coloring stuff does not, you're not going to see a bunch of over-rendered and oversaturated color stuff that you see from a lot of modern colorists. I prefer the line work to do the talking. And so I do modeling and stuff, but it's it tends to be more pastel-y and not overly dark and saturated and glowing. You know, people put these highlights and everything looks like it's airbrushed and glowing. And I don't really like that look. So anyway. In fact, if you go look at my campaign page for Wraith of God, and you look at the, especially the cover B option that sort of pays homage to the Marvel covers of the 70s, specifically the 1972 box art covers that they used to do. The coloring on that is very simple because I wanted to, again, sort of capture that feeling. But I don't want to disparage modern colorists, but it's just there's a style that's sort of prevalent in today's comic work that is not what I prefer, and probably just because I grew up on simpler color stuff. You guys that are younger than me, which would probably be most of you, may have grew up in the 90s with the Image comics and all that kind of stuff, and you may you grew up on a different type of coloring, so that's kind of the coloring you expect. We are all products of the environment we grew up in to a certain extent, and the stuff we were exposed to as kids. I'm not doing a bunch of line weights on her because this whole background is going to be black. So all this kind of thick and thin stuff on here, you're gonna lose anyway, because it's all going up. That was a little too thick, so I wanted to thin her arm out a bit. But like I said, that's all going to be black over here, so you're not even going to notice it when I'm done. I'm going to do a lot of texturing in this wood in the foreground here. It's not going to be black like this stuff is. We're going to assume there's a light coming in maybe from the front of the barn. As you see down here, we have the shadow of the wraith against the, which is a little bit stylized since he's showing his eyes, but. And all this heavy black I will fill in with a brush. All right, so that's going to be black. I'll probably indicate a little bit of, leave a white line here between the tub and the floor of the barn, which is basically bark dust. So or wood chips. So I'm going to put some indication of that in here too. And then this will all be black. That'll all be black. And I'm going to leave his eyes in there. Maybe a little bit more wood chip detail down here, which is kind of like little highlights popping out of the shadows. Stephen, well, you're going to have to wait till the graphic novel to find out more about the Wraith, which I've been given by my printer a July 5th delivery date. So I assume that means it's going to be in my hands by July 5th, which means I'm going to start mailing it out on the 6th. So I'll take to you, all you fine people. So, but yeah, many questions, not all questions, but many questions about the Wraith will be answered in this inaugural graphic novel. And then we will just go from there. I also have a question about what I think of Mignola's style. It's interesting because I wasn't, when he first started doing his thing, I wasn't a huge fan of it. I didn't really get it. I do kind of like it now, though, as I've grown to appreciate what he's doing and what he's accomplished. I mean, there's always, even if you don't necessarily like a style, you have to appreciate it if it's bringing something new or different to the table, which is he was definitely doing. And even though his stuff was incredibly, or is incredibly stylized, it's still, the structure is there. You know, the drawing is there. But someone else had mentioned, who was it? Oh, Jay Norman. What's up, Aaron? Dude with the booster print. Hey, thanks for joining us. Good to see you in the chat. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, I'm the same way. I was a child of the 70s, so I like Barry Smith's flat colors. He could do so much with blue, yellow, and pink. Yeah, and again, when you got guys that are doing sort of that level of detail, like especially in his later issues of Conan, like 23 and 24, the first Red Sonja issues that he inked himself, that's just like nuts. You know, and you start over rendering that stuff, and color wise, I mean, and then you lose all the line work, which is really, you know, what you should be focusing on. And it's weird when you see, you know, like Kirby stuff and other older books getting like covers or something getting recolored in a more modern style. It looks horrible. And I just think there's a certain way to do it and a certain way not to do it. But most people don't agree with me because I'm probably too old school for my own good. And someone asked about like black and white magazines or, you know, black and white art. Where was it? Where is that? If you're doing all the work yourself, then black and white would be best. Well, it is for you know, getting it done quicker. And I would love to do, like, in fact, I am talking to a few folks about doing, you know, like a Savage Tales type magazine, in all in black and white, just like the old Marvel magazines used to be. That'd be kind of fun, don't you think? Because I used to love the those magazines, the Warren magazines, Creepy and Eerie, of course, and then, you know, Savage Tales or some of those other monster magazines like Monsters Unleashed, and they, all that stuff was, you know, even Vampirella, that was all black and white, and the artists went in and did the work knowing that it was going to be reproduced in black and white. So you got this really nice extra detail and line work, and a lot of times ink wash, that you didn't get in the color books. So I'm a big fan of that. So I might do something like that. I'm also a big fan of fantasy and barbarian type stuff. So this crosshatch I'm doing with a 0.01. Obviously, I wanted a little bit more finer detail in there. Can really get crazy with the crosshatch. Because I really want to make sure that it feels like it's fading out of that black and not just laid over the top. I just got a little bit of a crosshatch highlight in there. And then we'll pull back. Oops. Okay, so I got to put the seams in her. I don't know, what would you call this? What do they call them? A bordus or a bodus or what? I don't know. Going with a 0.1 here. Do some delicate soft feathering. Okay. All right, I'm going to go in here and work on her face and hair. Yeah, I actually thought about doing the book in sepia tone or really limited color palette, but then again, I wasn't sure if that would be my, just a personal preference for me. Sorry, the dog's going nuts. There's something crazy going on outside. But I was like, again, I was kind of like, that's kind of, my sort of personal preference. And I'm like, well, what if actually the majority of the audience would probably prefer it actually to be in color. So I didn't do it, but I did think about it. And if I were coloring it myself, it would be a much simpler palette than what Gabe's using. Just probably for no better reason than just, efficiency and time. And I'm going to go in and do the work on her face with a much thinner pen. Oh, that dog. Anybody want to buy a dog? See, Dan, he's like, I love the Wraith Shadow. It adds story to it. Oh, there's going to be more story. Some of it I can't show in this drawing. I'm going to add something to this character because she's actually in the Wraith of God story, but I don't want to give some stuff away by revealing it in this pinup yet. So I know that sounds sort of weird and cryptic, but you'll have to wait and see. You'll get it once you see the book. Paul Brillard is here. Thanks for joining us, Paul. Appreciate that. Corset. Yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. AJ calls that the unmentionables. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. My mom, believe it or not, was and still is. She's still with us, pushing 91 years old. But she actually kind of liked pinup art. And she was my biggest critic on drawing women. Because when you're a teenage boy, and the first thing, or when you draw as a kid, you start drawing, you're drawing mostly male characters because that's, those are who you idolize, and you're not really thinking, about girls at that point. But then as you get to be a teenager and you are starting to think about girls, when you first start trying to draw them, they always end up looking way too masculine because you spent all this time trying to, draw men and superheroes and all these kind of things, right? And so it takes a whole different approach to, feminize the figure work and, the facial structure and things like that. And my mom was on my case constantly about that, and really pushed me to draw pretty women. And so I owe any success I've had drawing the female form and face to my mother for not letting me get away with marginal efforts in that area. So my mom also got me hooked on Star Trek, so that's her fault for that as well. Oh, that was this is a 16 Candle. I never saw that movie. I was never a John Hughes fan. I saw some of his films, but most of them I didn't. It would be tough. I mean, unless you're doing it, like I said, like a Savage Tales type thing where you're purposely doing it as kind of a throwback kind of thing, as a nostalgia thing. I wouldn't. Thank you, Jay Norman. I appreciate that. That's funny. They weren't way too masculine. You're just way ahead of your time. Yeah, my wife has always been my biggest critic, usually with the lawn, taking out the trash, raising kids, fixing the garbage holes, etc. Yep. Yeah, I did. That wasn't happening at my house. My mom is very cool. I used to take her. My dad hated going to the movies, And so he would never take her, so I had to take her. And we went and saw Star Trek 4, The Whales, and brought my dad along, and he fell asleep about 20 minutes into the movie. And so that was like the last time we ever took him to a movie. So I would take my mom. Like I took her to see Star Trek 2, and remember wanting to see Driving Miss Daisy, so I took her to see that. All like the sci-fi and fantasy stuff that I would go to see as an adult, I'd always took her. You know, when you're a teenager, you don't take your mom to the movies because you don't want to be seen with your mom. But when you're an adult, you know, you don't care. So I took her to see like Peter Jackson's King Kong, and took her to see all the Marvel movies till her hearing got so bad that she couldn't really hear what they were saying. She used to get so mad because, or still does, because the music is so loud that, and the sound effects and stuff, that a lot of times the dialogue gets kind of drowned out. And so I think the last movie I took her to might have been Ant-Man. And she was like, afterwards, I couldn't hear anything they were saying, you know. So took her to see The Winter Soldier. I don't know which one came out for Ant-Man. Came out after Winter Soldier, I'm sure. But yeah, my funniest story with my mom is when Mad Max Thunder Road came out, she says, I wouldn't mind seeing that. And I went, Mom, so you realize it's an R-rated film, right? She said, yeah. I go, do you even know what Road Warrior is? And she says, yeah, it was the thing with Mel Gibson. And I'm like, okay, so, and I didn't even know she'd seen the original, but maybe, I mean, I used to watch it, so maybe we watched it, you know, it was on Cinemax or something back in the day. And so anyway, I told her, I said, okay, I will take you, I said, but do not complain to me about the language or any adult thing that's in the film, all right? Because she would always, I take her to a movie, and if someone, there was swearing or something, she'd turn and look at me like I wrote the movie or I directed it, that somehow I was responsible for the language, right? And in fact, we went and saw Super 8, that J.J. Abrams Spielberg homage film, where those kids, you know, were encountered the aliens or whatever. And the kids in that movie were swearing, and she kept looking at me like, oh, I can't believe it. I'm like, what? I'm like, Mom, I didn't write it, okay? Just watch the movie and be quiet. So anyway, I made her promise that she wouldn't get on my case if there was anything in the movie that she found offensive. So those of you who've seen the movie, of course, there's that scene where they've got all those rather large women hooked up to milking machines. I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm sitting there next to my mom, who was in her 80s at the time. And she just, under her breath, she says, when that scene comes on, she goes, for crying out loud. And then that was it. That was all she said. And that was the only thing she said the rest of the movie. Oh, and I remember asking her after the movie, I was like, how'd you like the movie? She goes, oh, it was pretty good. She goes, I could have lived without that one scene. But anyway, so good old Mom. My mom doesn't like violence or anything like that. She won't even watch Jaws because she thinks it's too gross. But Yeah, she's a big Star Trek fan, though. Loves Shatner. My daughter does that to me. Tells me everything that's wrong with my stuff. And I'm like, you're in college. Get out of here before I start telling you what's wrong with yours. Well, I never went to a movie with my mom that there was a sex scene in. That I would avoid like the plague. I would never. That, and she wouldn't go for that anyway. So, like I was not going, to see Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead with my mom. Okay, those were not on the agenda. She can't stand horror films, and so she could never get why I was so enamored with them. I still don't know. She'd watch the Universal classic monster films with me, that type of stuff, but not, nothing that was like really violent or really scary. Always try not to do eyelashes too uniform. I like them to be a little chunky, I guess, would be a way to put it. Feeling a little bit more random. But people that go for more of a stylized or animated style would, do like just really thick lines up there, which works too. But I don't know. I always went for a little bit chunkier look there. My hand's getting in the way. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how can I don't know how I can do this without Alrighty. Not too shabby, you don't think. Now I can do the fun of the crosshatch here on these stockings. I am serious. Thank you, first of all, Jay, for the $4.99. That's very kind of you. I appreciate it. Any plans for Wraith of God limited statue? There are, shall we say, light plans at this point, meaning nothing too far along. I am thinking about it. It's something I would like to do. We're going to see how this next campaign goes. And I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. You know what I mean? It's like you have to, I think, spend a little bit of time developing brand name, so that the character is more recognizable than just to a few hundred people. I think someone would, because statues are, expensive, obviously. and they're expensive to make, and then they're expensive for you guys to purchase. So I'd have to make sure that there was enough interest out there, enough people that really like the Wraith of God, and that they would, that you guys have a feeling that, oh, this is going to be around for a while. And, so then getting a statue would seem like a kind of a cool thing to do. But I would love, 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 love to do it. I am thinking about it. But in this next campaign, there's going to be I'm going to do the bloody werewolf version of Dale Keown's werewolf cover that he did for the first campaign. And so there'll be a t-shirt available for that. I also want to do a blacklight poster of it. And so there'll be things like that are extras, but they're not going to be like huge ticket items yet. But let's say that the next campaign is as successful or more successful than, say, this one, the first one. Then I'm starting to think, okay, I've got a big audience for this, and now maybe I can invest the money into doing a statue and feel pretty good that I could at least break even on it, because I don't like losing money, even if it means I get a statue of my character. It's one thing to drop $4,000 on a sketchbook or something, getting a sketchbook printed up, and then saying, okay, well, over the next couple of years I'll be able to sell all these and come out ahead on the deal. I think it's another, if you're dropping 10-15 grand on something with no idea of whether or not you're going to sell any or not, that's so we'll see. Though I honestly, I really do. It's something I would love to do. I think it would look really cool. But I'm going to keep from getting too carried away too quickly, and let things evolve naturally to where the audience gets to a point where they'd be ready and excited for something like that. Or I should say, ready to support it and excited for something like that. Yeah, that's what I mean. After the second book. It might. See, there's a lot of things you do, like the magnet, excuse me, Wraith of God patch. I think that's cool. This used to bother me. It doesn't anymore. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Yeah. Dave was fantastic. She absolutely was, and she loves Errol Flynn. Loves Errol Flynn. Adam Hughes. Even though I'd like him to make his women a little more hippie, but he but I think Adam draws everything well. He gets, everybody kind of focuses on his women, but he draws everything well. Because he's just, he's that good. And of course, Dave Stevens was fantastic. My dog has been so good, and he's going nuts down there today. I think Shelley needs to corral that dog. It's technically hers. I can't go yell at him when I'm on the live stream. That seems sort of inappropriate to me, as tempted as I am. No, yeah, getting back to that inking question, the tighter my pencils got, the more disappointed I was with inking, whether I was doing it myself or someone else was inking it. And I would always spend so much time getting focused on the most minute detail, right? And lose the focus of the big picture. What should this feel like? What should this, what am I going for here aesthetically? And I would, you'd get caught up on just a single line. And people don't look at art that way. You may, if you're studying it, you might really start to break it down through multiple viewings or whatever. But for the average person that's just reading a comic, they're not focused on these little lines I just put on her knee. They're just not. And for me as the artist to get totally carried away with the perfection of those little lines right there really can get you focused on the wrong thing. And then what you end up doing is you end up inking the life out of your drawing, right? And I realized that very early on, that this stuff was getting too slick, and it lost some of its organic nature that sort of makes it feel alive. And so what I've tried to do with Wraith of God is breathe some life back into it and energy into it by not being so tight with my inking and trying to create an overall feel or look to the comic that represents, not only the era, the dirty old dusty old West of 1883, but something that that you're representing the environment, but also kind of the for lack of a better word, just the overall feel that you want the story to have. And so I've sort of, tried to adopt a little bit rougher or looser style. And again, that's all relative, right? Something like what, Ron Garney does or Lee Weeks is way looser and rougher than what I would do. But looser and rougher for me, I guess. Because I still have part of me that is just, I love detail. I love the precision and the mastery of the fine line. So it's hard for me to kind of abandon that completely. So kind of looking for a way to sort of incorporate both of those types of things, where it's a little bit looser, but it still has all that sort of fine detail that I love so much. But just even putting, dents and scratches on this tub, that's stuff I picked up later, stylistically, because you want to create a texture. And again, so it's kind of random, and it's not, the lines up here are not perfect, but who cares? Oops. Camera malfunction. How is it possible? What am I going to do? All right, bear with me a minute here while I try to attempt to fix this. For crying out loud, are you kidding me? Oh, I see what the problem is. Is this like a bad ride at an amusement park? You guys are getting motion sick? All right. Repaired. I had to move it, but okay. Hey, Rodney Ulibarri's here. Hey, Rodney, thanks for joining us. So I kind of experiment and find the line I want, but that is true. Most people don't notice those kind of details that will drive you mad. It is true. Someone was saying, there it is. Same here. That's why I ink on vellum. You know what I've done before is I have done some pieces on watercolor board, and that will really give your line work some texture. I actually liked how it looked. In fact, the first 3 pages I originally did back in the 90s, Wraith of God, I've shown them before, a double page spread and an opening panel page. I did on cold pressed watercolor paper, and it really gave it a nice look. And I inked it with a pen too, but I've done brushwork on watercolor paper, and it breaks the line up nicely if you want a little bit of extra texture. The problem is drawing on watercolor paper. You don't want to damage the paper by erasing a lot. So what I would have to do is I would create the page on like 20-pound copy paper, like 11 by 17, just regular copy paper. And then I would light table it on to the watercolor paper, which isn't that easy because the watercolor paper is pretty thick. So it doesn't, the light table you don't get a lot of the detail through there. So you have to just sort of light table or trace the image onto the watercolor board, then kind of do any detail work with your pencil over the top of that. But I did really like the results. I haven't done it a lot, mainly because watercolor paper's expensive, and doing a whole book like that, where I had to light table everything, is a pain in the butt, which I've done before because I did that with Amethyst when I worked on Amethyst for DC. That book was shot from my pencils. It was never inked, so I had to make sure the pencils were, tight, but also that the board wasn't too get too dirty, I would do the pages on the 20-pound copy paper, 11 by 17, and fairly detailed. And then I would light table them onto the comic book board and then clean them up and, add some detail and stuff. And that's what I used for my, that I would scan and send to the colorist. And that was a pain. I mean, it was a lot of work. I was essentially drawing every page twice. But I didn't know how else to get the pencils dark enough and clean enough. And I think the finished product looked fine, but it was a lot of work. All right, where are we at here? Almost done. I'm not gonna fill in any of the heavy blacks because that's boring TV. Maybe even more boring than this is. Let's get those trees back there though. Now, if you want to see what this absolutely looks like, completely finished with the background completely put in, or at least the shadows back here, you must join me for Aaron Live Sunday, 5 o'clock Pacific time this weekend, where Shelley will be back and we will do our regular show, but I will show you guys what this looks like completely done, and we will have the Diaz brothers on to talk about their vacation pinup book, for which this is for. And so you'll get the regular Shelley and Aaron nonsense, but we'll get a little bit of information about their campaign and what they've been up to. I know Phil relatively well. I've never met his brother. But Phil's a good guy, and he has good stories. Probably should make this more silhouette-y looking. I don't want to go solid black. I would rather have it broken and textured with some white in there. So I finally got the script completely figured out for Wraith of God Blood Hunters. I wasn't sure exactly on some of the details which direction the story was going to go, and I got worked all through that. So I've got about 10 or 11 pages of finished script right now, and which is enough to give me enough story to do preview pages for the next campaign. So I'm going to get all the covers done, and then I think there'll be I think I'm doing a Garbage Man print for this campaign, the next campaign, because Garbage Man, of course, will be a backup story in the Wraith of God Blood Hunters book. So you can see this is kind of a a loose, kind of sketchy look to it, but I want to, it still captures kind of that wood grain texture in the tree, but it's not something I'm sweating over every little line that I put down, because I do want a randomness to it, because nature is, of course, full of randomness, or what would appear to be randomness. I think if you try to control everything and make everything perfect, then you lose sort of that organic nature. And this book is a organic book. Wraith of God, I mean. And since this is a character from Wraith of God, I want to keep that organic feel. I'm going to do her toenails here. I'm not going to get too elaborate, just indicate. Call it good. All right. We'll circle template that full moon back there. This will be solid black down here. Like I said, this will all be, well, let's do one plank of wood so you guys can see. I'll probably do this, most of this with a brush because it'll be easier. But oh, look at this. Those pages in Wraith's first appearance can be found in the Imagine This Aaron Lopresti sketchbook. If you can find one, they're Adelson Reese. I assume you're referring to me. Thank you. If you're not, the heck with you. No, I appreciate that. That's very nice. Yeah, AJ is referring to a sketchbook I did. They printed up back in Florida. I think there's maybe 100 copies, if that. What happened was the guy that printed, or the company that printed it, it was digitally printed. It wasn't offset. And the cover ink was left uncoated. Okay. And so I stacked these books in a box, and they were there for, a couple of years, the ones I didn't sell immediately. And they stuck together. The ink stuck together, and just, it just came off. And so it ruined a bunch of the books. So if you have a copy of Imagine This, you've got a rare item. I have one copy. In fact, I'll show it real quick here. I'm going to have to take off in about 5 minutes, but let me show you this. If I can find it. There it is. Yeah, something like one of these, this might show up on eBay. I don't know. But that's the book that AJ was referring to. Imagine This, a collection of sketches and illustrations by Aaron Lopresti. A nice little watercolor take on the Adam and Eve shtick there on the cover. I think actually the snake turned out really well. That little highlight that made his skin look shiny. That was just like some acrylic white, really kind of a dry brush effect. I sort of drug across there to get that effect. Turned out pretty nice. But anyway, yeah, so there's Kit Carter on the back of it, which is actually the first appearance of Kit Carter as well. Cold Crocodile Press. That's my publishing Thank you, Real PHV, for joining us. Appreciate it. Yeah, so doing my own comic is a natural progression for me because I've been self-publishing my entire career. I've always enjoyed doing it, although I have to admit I did not really enjoy the problems that I ran into with the printing of Wraith of God, but you know, stuff happens sometimes. It's part of the deal. If you're just joining me or you missed the opening of this, my delivery date for Wraith of God, the Wraith of God graphic novel, is July 5th. I just spoke to the printer a couple days ago, and I'm going to send out an update so everybody knows. So although it's been with the printer for nearly 2 months, that journey is about to end. You guys will finally get your book. Anyway, so this is kind of how the background's going to look, right? With this kind of really black like this, but with the white texture in there. So I'll get that kind of black wood grain effect, and it's just going to be all shadowed. So this stuff in the front here will be lit. This we'll probably crosshatch this side of the wood to create kind of a gray area, transition from this black area to this gray area to the lit area. And then, so I think it'll look pretty good. And if it doesn't, what the heck? What are you going to do? Alrighty, gang. No, it's I kind of play it by ear as the stuff. You know, a lot of times I will do. Well, it depends on the tree. It depends on the wood texture. I mean, I don't normally do something like this where it's all black and I'm leaving some texture in there, but I have done it before. But I'll do it with a brush. Sometimes I'll do it with a pen. You know, it depends on, you know, the piece, because I've used brush, which gives you a different look, as well as pen sketchiness. You know, I've done it looser, I've done it tighter, you know, so it just depends on what I'm going for. Book cover page reminds me of Wilma Flintstone. That's exactly who it is, of course. Oh, man. All right, so back to Jaws and his AC/DC hat. Okay, guys, that's pretty much all I got for you today. Thank you for joining me for the last hour and 20-some minutes. Like I said, this will be done Sunday, so you'll be able to check that out on the Sunday show. The Wraith of God wraparound cover might be done. Then again, it might not. It's hard to say. I've got yard work to do this weekend, so we'll see how much of that I get done and how much of the rest of the cover I get done. But anyway, we'll have good stuff, new videos, all sorts of nonsense and tomfoolery, so make sure you join us. If you haven't backed the campaign, Wraith of God, and you want to check it out, the link is in the description, and the link for the CG Vacation book is also in the description of this video. And I would encourage you all to like and subscribe to this channel if you have not done that yet. And I've got some, like I said, some pre-prepared videos coming up, shorter videos. So you'll want to keep your eyes open for those as well. Yes, I have seen it. I have seen Shudder. I have not flipped through it. I've seen the covers and stuff and people pushing it, but I have not flipped through it. All right, guys. Again, thanks. enjoy the rest of your, the weekend. I guess the week's over. So enjoy your weekend and stay out of trouble. And we will see you soon. Thanks for